Today we're going through all of Sancho's best bits against PSG recently. We will decode his dribbling, 1v1s, and compact area dribbles, decision making, as well as his subtle techniques for giving himself more time on the ball that will completely change your game in tight spaces. Although Sancho is a winger, this analysis will help any position, especially when dealing with tight spaces. So let's see what knowledge gaps we can unlock today. In the 6th minute, we see top intelligence from Sancho to bring it back out safe. As the ball is coming to his teammate, he glances and sees his fullback following tightly. One potential option he has here is to come towards the ball, bringing his fullback with him before spinning him behind. Paused, as he's about to control the ball, if he stops it dead here, he will be in such a tight situation. Instead, he takes his first touch backwards with a roll, now paused, baiting this defender to dive in from the side before doing la croqueta to avoid the outstretched leg from the side. Now he has nullified this pressure and drives inside with way more options before laying it off back out wide. This clip isn't just for you wingers. Anywhere you've received the ball between the lines, you have a decision to make. Do I turn? Do I stop the ball and pass, / pin my marker, or do I come back out and start again? A lot of the time, you're probably losing the ball more than you should be because you aren't choosing the decision to come back out, as it can feel like you're playing too safe or slowing the play down. Keep that in mind and try to be aware when the right time might be to take the ball out safely and start again. It will make all the difference and you'll be much less of a liability to your team in possession. Because sometimes it doesn't matter how great of a dribbler you are, finisher you are, if you give the ball away too much, it's very likely that you won't be in the starting 11, especially in big games. In the 8th minute, we have this clip. Sancho receives the ball wide and puts his foot on the ball, pointing to his fullback to make the overlap. His fullback doesn't come, and look how he adapts. This is all about awareness. As he has his foot on the ball, the defender in front begins to engage. He now rolls it back to protect the ball. As he rolls the ball back and gets side on, he glances behind him and spots the pressure. Now, a sharp touch directly backwards and a sharp cut inside, just missing the defender. This look allows him to plan ahead of time. So, this touch backwards towards the last defender was perfectly weighted, as he already knew how much room he had to work with. In the 11th minute, we see his composure in tight, dangerous spaces, initially starting with a risky pass backwards and finding himself out wide. Paused after his first touch, notice he's facing the throwing line with the defender behind him. But he doesn't stay this way as the defender has the advantage now. He immediately runs around the ball to face up the pitch. He does a stretch touch, mimicking a knock down the line before doing a body feint and a sharp outside chop. Now paused, as he's sprinting inside, we see the defender is too. But he does a body feint instead, and look what this does to the defender. It makes him cross over his leg and quickly readjust, giving Sancho a split second longer on the ball. Now a perfectly disguised pass through the tight gap, and he runs back off this defender. All the subtle moves in this clip are what make prime Sancho one of the best. The fake touch into a body feint to get some momentum advantage, the sharp outside chop into another body feint inside to get a split second on the ball, and the disguised pass. In the 25th minute, we see him connecting with his fullback. Look how many subtle techniques Sancho uses to buy himself more time. He controls with his back foot and begins to drive towards the line. We see him move the ball away at the last second with the outside of his foot, avoiding this stretched leg. But look how he baited it. After controlling, he knocks the ball forwards and doesn't touch it for 4 strides. For the defender, the ball now looks vulnerable, but Sancho is using this touch as bait and now watched for the defender to plan and commit. Now it's super congested, so he comes back out with a sharp outside chop and the defender playing catch-up, before faking and going back down the line. Now the picture is this, with all of this space between the 4 players, opposed to just before he came out of it. Now, a fake pass followed by a body feint, all giving him more time on the ball as the defender doesn't want to get fooled. Now, after dragging 2 players out wide, he rolls it back to his fullback. So all of these subtle fakes and baits really play with the defender's psychology, and it makes them more hesitant to dive in. And they know when they do dive in, Sancho's good enough to take advantage of it. And noticed how he realised it was getting too tight So he faked to come back out and then go back down the line, giving himself a little more room. In the 28th minute, we see this slick dribble. He gets lucky with the touch and is now driving at an isolated jockeying defender. Firstly, notice his angle of approach. He doesn't run down the line, he runs at an angle which keeps both options open. He lets the ball run and does a subtle body feint down the line, and then followed by an explosive one the same way. The defender's hips are facing. Now, La Croqueta inside to avoid any outstretched leg. Now, another chop inside, but why does this one work? Look at his hips as he comes out of the first skill. He turns his hips slightly this way, which can mimic a shot/pass. And paused, look how sharp that chop is, completely on the stretch. He lays it off, and they get a shot on goal. In the 59th minute, he destroys his fullback and should get an assist. We see this skill from Sancho, and from a player's perspective, what could Sancho have looked for to be one step ahead here? When Sancho receives the ball, the defender doesn't jockey and back off. He continues to engage slowly. Now Sancho can tell he will eventually have to try and tackle. The defender is running this way, and Sancho's fake touch is cutting inside against the defender's momentum. The mechanics of the skill is fake touch, hop across, and a sharp lift over his trailing leg. In the 61st minute, insane composure and skill in a dangerous area of the pitch. He picks up on the loose ball, and how does he do this take on so easy? He runs around the ball and faces the defender up. If we slow it down, look at his right leg. He goes to touch it with the inside of his right leg here, and then transitions, scooping it diagonally forwards with his left foot. This whole skill worked because of maximum disguise. Now, out wide, he has no options, and both defenders come across. So he goes back out, doing a double body feint with an outside chop against the chasing defender, and finds his teammate with a lifted pass. And note the awareness from the start of this whole clip. Sancho, whilst keeping the ball, also had the awareness to spot his teammate running out wide. And just talking about that final pass that was lifted, it's really not spoken about enough, but these types of passes in tight areas are a lot of the time the difference between your pass going through and it getting intercepted. If you've watched a lot of my previous YouTube videos, you would have came across this pattern a lot. Next time you lose the ball in a tight situation with a pass, ask yourself, would have lifting the ball saved you? In the 63rd minute, a slick 1-2 before switching the play. And look what we see again, a lifted pass in case of an outstretched leg. Again, ultimately disguised before the pass. He faces up his opponent and throws his subtle body feint, which makes the defender now plant his feet, giving himself more time on the ball. And to beat our opponent, we don't always need to beat them cleanly. A 1-2 can be just as deadly, if not more. Especially when an engaged defender is running towards you. After the 1-2, he drives here before doing a fake pass, fooling this player, and switches a play. 70th minute, Sancho turning into prime Neymar, dribbling with swagger. Initially, the defender has tons of space to back off into, so none of his skills are doing anything. So Sancho puts his foot on the ball, and now as a planted defender opposed to a jockeying one. Now with the Neymar foot hang and the Matoma knock into space, cutting across defender, sending him flying. To become an elite dribbler, you need to realise when the defender has the advantage. And one way of doing this is realising that a jockeying defender has tons of room to back off into. Remember, we can only beat a defender if they actually come towards us and commit. And to learn how to beat any defender type in any scenario with the right skill for that specific scenario and much more, check out our elite level dribbling guide. The link to it is in the description below. In the 74th minute, Sancho gets off a shot. Firstly, this skill. Roll step over, then a knock back across his body. Now with a tiny delay, making the ball vulnerable for a split second before lunging forward to chop back inside against the defender's momentum. Paused. As he cuts inside, we see the defender now chasing. He delays and hops before chopping it back out wide to get off a shot. In the 83rd minute, Sancho plays this through ball through the defender's legs. With the close-up angle, we can really appreciate the genius in this. He touches the ball across his body, looks at the goal, mimics a fake shot with his run-up, head down and arm up, and at the last second goes from 100 to 0 and plays this delicate pass through the legs. The most impressive thing about this clip is his spatial awareness and how early he made up his mind. As we see, he has his head down here, so he can't see any runs. So he must have mapped this run and pass out even earlier than this. The more you watch football, the more you will see so many assists especially in tight games with great defenders, or a pass through the defender's legs. I actually played against Sancho when I was 16, when he was at Man City, and he played the exact same way. He stood out by a mile. But it was really interesting because he used so much flair, but in an efficient way, which is really rare to see. And one important thing to note about the game that we've just covered is Sancho's first few actions, he gave the ball away. Other players here would now shy away from the ball, but this shows the confidence and belief players need to have in their ability to keep going. One thing I do want to add to this is we always hear be brave, be confident even when you've given the ball away a few times. One thing people fail to mention if we use dribbling as an example is we can only be truly confident if we know what we are doing. It's the same with anything. Sancho has so much reference of beating players and so much knowledge of beating players that it's going to be easier for him to turn his mindset around and go again. And someone who doesn't have as much dribbling knowledge will definitely feel like hiding a little bit more if they've given the ball away. And simply telling someone be brave and confident might not fix the problem. There's a reason you don't feel brave and confident. It's lack of clarity. Clarity is confidence. A lot of the times you just don't have the dribble and IQ to understand why you got tackled. What defender type does the defender like to adopt? What scenarios are you picking the ball up in, etc. If this lack of clarity and fear resonates with you when you've given the ball away a few times, ask yourself, do you truly know how to dribble in the first place? Our dribbling programs can help you out with this, but also all of our YouTube channels and our reels that we do. There's tons of dribbling analysis in all of those too, just not as in-depth as the programs. The more knowledge gaps you can fill, the more confident you will be. Football is a game of problem solving. Football IQ is just understanding the solutions to the problems that you face on the pitch. One big thing that stands out with Sancho is he's mastered the disguise right before the skill. We've seen it multiple times in this analysis, using small baits, feints, changes of direction to give himself that split second longer on the ball. That's another thing for you to reflect on in your games. When you're watching your clips back, see what you're doing in tight situations. Were you adding enough baits, fakes, and changes of direction? A big thanks for watching. If you've gained any knowledge from this video, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Check out our extremely in-depth programs on our website, link in the description below, to fill in all possible knowledge gaps. Instead of doing the same old mistakes again and again, map out your knowledge gaps. You won't believe the difference this will make to your game, but also your confidence once you start to do this inner work. But most of all, keep chasing your potential.